Welcome back. This is a story any parent can identify with. We all worry about our kids getting sick, particularly something awful like cancer. It's why TMJ4 is such a proud partner of the MACC Fund. Because of it, there is hope for children who go through these clinical trials, and that's where you come in. Here's Dylan's story.
My name is Dylan. This is my journey for kicking cancer's butt.
Dylan was diagnosed with Burkitt's lymphoma on September 26, 2018. At that age, he was 4 years old. Dylan's cancer came on very quickly. We started noticing on Monday that his stomach was a little bit swollen. And what triggered us to go to the doctor was we were leaving for a trip for Disney World on that next Saturday. And we didn't want to take a kid who maybe wasn't feeling so great to Disney World. So we went and saw our pediatrician, and through a bunch of x-rays and some lab draws, our pediatrician identified that something was going on with Dylan and he wasn't sure what. And so on Wednesday, he sent us to the emergency department, and in the emergency department at Children's Hospital, they did a lot more imaging and they found out that Dylan had cancer. They weren't sure what kind of cancer Dylan had. At that point, the cancer was all over his body, and they had decided at that point that they needed to do a biopsy of his liver the next day. And so we were admitted to the hot unit at Children's Hospital, and then they started doing a bunch of tests to figure out what was going on.
Could really feel the sense of urgency with the amount of different doctors that came in to see Dylan. Oncology, right? He had a lot of issues with his kidneys. He had lung issues, fluid built up around his lungs because of the cancer. And he went back to surgery, had a bunch of different stuff done. They inserted his central line. They put in a drain around his lungs to drain the fluid around his lungs. They took the biopsy. And after surgery, Dylan wasn't doing very well. I would say he never really cleanly woke up, and he was very puffy and he was very swollen. And that's at that time we left the hot unit and they put us into the ICU, which obviously going from cancer diagnosis in the hot unit and now you're in the ICU just kind of escalated the entire thing. We finally got the lungs cleared out. So it took about a week in the ICU, and at that time actually got a bunch of good news related to Dylan's cancer.
So Dylan ended up needing 5 rounds of chemo, and Burkitt's lymphoma is a really rare, aggressive form of lymphoma. And so they had to start chemo as quickly as possible, and they had to give him a lot of chemo at once during every round to kill the cancer, because if they didn't kill it quickly, it would continue to grow. Every round was a week in the hospital where he got between 6 to 7 different chemo drugs. So right after the ICU stay, they did rounds 1 and 2. And so we were in the hospital a total of 19 days before they let us go home, because they really wanted to get as much chemo as they could in him to stop the growth of all of the tumors. In between every round of chemo, they would send us home, and we would have to go back to the MACC clinic a few times a week to see how his labs were doing, see how his body was doing. And if his blood counts weren't looking very good, they would give him a blood transfusion. If he was looking good, then we just came home. From start to finish, Dylan had the diagnosis for 3 months. And then he was sent down for some imaging where they determined that the cancer was all gone and that he was considered clear of cancer.
Dylan never really complained about anything and never really asked to go home during it.
I think that's one of the blessings of the age that Dylan was when he got the cancer was 4-year-olds don't remember a lot. The nurses making everything as fun as they could helped him only remember the fun out of being in the hospital. It's as clear as could be in our minds what happened every day. I've never had as vivid memories as I do during those 3 months. But again, I think it's a blessing that he was 4 and doesn't remember any of it. We had a lot of successes stacked on top. It's when we found out it wasn't liver cancer, it was lymphoma. And those were huge wins for us. But when we were sitting in the emergency room and they told us, your son has cancer and it could be really, really bad, or it could be bad. They said, do you want to be on a clinical trial? And that was hard. That was a hard decision for us to make, because you're not sure what the clinical trial's gonna be, but you want to give your child any fighting chance that they can have to beat this. And so what pediatric cancer and raising funds for pediatric cancer is it's allowing those clinical trials to be offered to family when they hear the worst news ever. And it's giving them that final fighting chance that maybe this could be their last resort. And so by raising money, raising awareness, by allowing our physicians to create clinical trials, it's giving our children that beat cancer a better chance of living a great quality of life.
Be strong.
And here's where you come in. The TMJ4 Sports Auction for MACC is live right now. You can help children fighting cancer and related blood disorders by bidding on more than 45 items up for grabs this week, including a Weber pellet grill, a signed Bart Starr jersey, just a couple of the items. All the money raised goes to the MACC Fund, which helps children just like Dylan. And Dylan, head to tmj4.com/MACC to bid.